Hi, my name is April, and I made my crush choose me over my rival in 3 days. But before I tell you how, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. School dances, fancy dresses, and spending all day on my hair? No thank you. Or at least that's what I used to think before he transferred to this school. Across the room, I gazed at his shaggy black hair. When he moved his head, I could just barely see a silver earring. His broad shoulders and strong hands were so captivating to me. So far, the only thing I knew about him was 1, he's hot. 2, his name is Rain. And 3, he likes anime. I know this because he always has his nose buried in a manga book. The cover art looks familiar, but I'd have to get close enough to read the title. Just by looking at him, I knew if there was one thing I had to do before the dance this Sunday, it was to find a way to end up there with him. I had 3 days to make him mine. I stood up. Timer starts now. With a spark of confidence, I walked my way over to him. I was already imagining it. I would introduce myself, and he'd instantly fall in love with me at first sight. I was only a few steps behind him. Just as I opened my mouth, Kimberly walked up and placed her hands on either side of his desk, leaned in, and struck up a conversation. I froze and watched in horror. You see, Kimberly and I have been rivals ever since 3rd grade, when I accidentally spilled my soup on her lap at lunch. And the next day, she dumped her whole milk carton in the back of my shirt. Kimberly turned and looked at me with an evil smirk, and I stormed out of the class into the bathrooms before Rain could even look in my direction. I slammed open the bathroom door, scaring a girl into leaving in a rush. Sorry, I called after her, but she didn't seem to hear. I sighed in defeat and looked in the mirror, my dark brown eyes staring back at me through my brown hair. Kimberly had it all. She was popular, pretty with blonde hair and blue eyes. Of course he'd like her. I felt the anger boiling in me again. Kimberly doesn't even like him. She just wants him because she knows I like him. So unfair! I shouted and kicked the trash can next to me over. Sorry, I said, and picked it back up. No, I won't let her win. He'll want to be my date by Sunday. First, I'll need a game plan. I need to find out the name of that manga. I walked back into class just as the bell rang. I scrambled to grab my things and set off for my next class. I glanced up to see Rain was on the move just yet. He had just tucked in his book in his backpack and stood up. I quickly looked away and focused on gathering my own things before he could notice me looking at him. A shadow of a person stopped in front of my desk. I looked up. It was Kimberly. So, she said with a sneer, you like nerdy boy, huh? Guess you want to be his date, huh? Too bad. He's mine. So back off. She flipped her hair and turned away before I could speak. She called after Rain just as he was leaving. Wait up! I want to walk with you! As she slipped away from me, I broke my pencil in half. You won't win, I whispered under my breath. I couldn't help but trail behind them in the hallway. I wanted to know what they were talking about and what his next class was. If I was going to win, I'd need to know his schedule. It was hard to hear their conversation in the hall with all the other kids hurrying past us to get to their next class. But I made out the words, culinary class. That's my next class! And Kimberly isn't in that class. Now's my chance. I smiled and waved at Kimberly as I entered the class right after Rain. I could see how angry she was in her eyes, which only made me more happy. In class, while Rain was cooking, I snuck over to his desk and grabbed his manga book from his bag and slipped it into my bag. I was so happy I forgot to put on my mittens and grabbed a hot pan with my bare hands. I burned them and cried out in pain. Are you okay? I turned to see Rain, and as I did, I saw he was gazing at me with a concerned look. He reached out his hand. You're a little clumsy, aren't you? He said, smiling. Rain ended up walking me to the nurse and spent the rest of the class talking to me. Me! I tried my best to act cool. I spent all lunch reading the manga he brought. It was a romance manga. The main character was a princess with a long black dress and purple hair. She was beautiful. Satisfied with something new to talk to him about tomorrow, I tried to slip his manga book back in his bag while he had his back turned. As I was putting the book back, he turned around. What are you doing? He questioned. I grabbed a random piece of paper from his bag and pulled it out. Oh, I saw someone put this mean note in your backpack, so I wanted to take it out before you saw. He smiled and thanked me before walking away. As I unfolded the paper and saw that it was just a grocery list. The top of the list was a special kind of candy chocolate. I knew just what to do. The next morning, I went to class excited to ask him to the dance, seeing that it was tomorrow. I knew just how to ask him. I was going to act out the scene in the manga. I would give him the chocolate, look into his eyes, and say, I've loved you since the beginning. Yesterday, I went to the store and bought the chocolates on his shopping list. At lunch, I would give him the chocolate and ask him to be mine. Rain and I's first class together, we spent all class talking about the manga and how the first anime episode would be coming out. Our second class together, we discussed our favorite horror movies. And at lunch, I wrote a love letter and tied the note around the chocolate and walked up to his table. Oh, hi, April. What's up? He asked. And just as I smiled and opened my mouth to finally ask him, Kimberly sat down next to him and wrapped her arm around him. Kimberly smiled at me with an evil look. What's wrong, babe? Is she bothering you? Babe? I asked, still shocked. Didn't he tell you? I asked him out to the dance tomorrow, and he said yes. Oh, I said and turned to leave. My heart shattered. April, come back! Rain shouted after me. But I walked, chocolate in hand, all the way out of the lunchroom, out the front doors, out of the school, and only when I was finally alone in my house, I cried. I cried for a long time. I wiped the tears away and told myself, it's not over yet. She hasn't won yet. They still haven't danced together, and there's still one last thing I can try. Rain's favorite manga character from his book is a princess, in a long black dress with long curly purple hair. The next day, the day of the dance, I showed up to the party in a long black dress, with my hair dyed purple. All eyes were on me, jaws on the floor. All sorts of boys that would never look at me were now all over me. I walked up to Kimberly and Rain just as Kimberly was asking him to dance. What are you doing, April? He asked. Oh, He cut me off. What are you wearing? I'm trying to get you to like me. I weakly handed him the chocolates. He laughed, and I could feel myself starting to cry. April, you don't need to change yourself for me to like you. I already did like you. I've had a crush on you since I first saw you, April. But you didn't ask me to the dance, and I thought for sure you already had a date. So when Kimberly asked me, I said yes. What? Kimberly screamed. No one says no to me. Rain and I ignored her and hugged. Rain and I danced the night away, and Kimberly left me alone ever since, defeated.